And now Naomi's ready. She's got the wedding all planned. You know that, don't you? Mama's got the wedding planned.
Yeah.
Now I tell men and women when they come in for a wedding conference, I said, this is the girls' party, guy. Just back off and listen.
There you go.
Girls are born knowing how to have a wedding. A guy says, give me a ladder and a fast car and let me out of here.
Yeah.
And so Boaz is sitting there, and Ruth is saying, I'm going to do this, 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 I'm going to roast a bit, and we're going to have it out the farm, I'm going to, and before, in 10 minutes, they had the wedding planned. And very honestly, the delayed gratification that Boaz and Ruth had spent was ready to be over. In a very short period of time, they had their wedding. And all Bethlehem was invited. I want to tell you, it was a rhinoceros affair. 3 days of drinking and dancing and reading roast lamb, and they cleared off the thrashing floor for dancing and barbecuing, and it was a party. And within a year, Naomi was sitting at the front of her home, smiling from ear to ear, and in her arm was a baby named Obed. Ruth and Boaz were out tending the farm. They had a built-in babysitter who was very glad to do the job. And Obed grew up in her arms and became a young man and married. And Boaz, son, and had a baby boy named Jesse. And Jesse grew up and married and had 8 sons. And the runt was named David. The shepherd was named David. And God sent Samuel to anoint a king over his people. And Jesse brought in the 7 older sons for Samuel to look at, and Samuel kept to God saying, nope, 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 not that one. And Samuel said, don't you have another son? God says nope to all these guys. Now God says nope too, you understand that, don't you? That's God talk for no. And, well, yeah, I've got the scrawny kid out in the pasture to take care of the sheep. We'll go bring him in. And you have to understand that everybody else saw a 17-year-old teenager shepherd. But God saw a king and brought him in. And this was a young man that took his sling and laid the giant low and became a king and was built the city of Jerusalem. And he had a son named Solomon that grew up as a teenager, and I kind of see him in my sanctified imagination of spending a lot of time on Grandpa Jesse's farm. Now you have to understand, Solomon was not a fighter, he was a lover. He loved gardens, he loved waterways, he rebuilt Jerusalem, built a temple. He was a writer. He wrote 3,000 songs, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon. And we don't have a signature in the book of Ruth. But I'll tell you, I see the fingerprints all over to Solomon. And I think there was a day that Solomon listened to Jesse, and perhaps even Onan was still alive, and he had a first-hand story of his great-great-grandma Ruth and great-great-grandpa Boaz. And I think he sat down to write the book that he couldn't write for himself. And he sat down and he realized that here is the story that God will use as an example of one man, one woman, falling in love, doing it God's way, and becoming God's family. You go through the Hebrew literature, you won't find many. In fact, I know of no other that you can point to that weren't polygamous, had affairs, concubines. God had this couple that became his poster boy, poster girl for what he wanted in a wedding. And I believe that as Solomon wrote that story, and he realized how he messed up his life, 1,000 women bickering, backbiting, fighting. I could have just 3 or 4 dozen around here. I want to take a baseball bat to them half the time. I must have taken a chariot load of Midol a month just to keep them quieted down. And he's sitting there and said, how did I get in this mess? And there was another scroll there. And while he was thinking of monogamy, not monotony, but monogamy, he began to write, your kisses are sweeter than honey to me. And I think the Song of Solomon is Solomon dreaming about what his life would have been like had he avoided 1,000 women and had found one woman like Ruth that he could love. My skin is dark because I'm in the field working all the time. You're like a young stag on the mountain. Daniel got worried I was going to quote Song of Solomon. Some of you are under 30, so you weren't supposed to read it. But I won't. You just read it. I tell all young people, you can't read Song of Solomon until you're 30, and I'll read it that night. I know I'm going to get some Bible read. I think Solomon wrote Song of Solomon as a dream. What it would have been like if I had lived like Boaz and Ruth. One man, one woman, madly in love. They could ravish each other in sweetheart lovemaking at the proper time. Who you dreamed about when you were out at the field working. You couldn't get home fast enough. And you read the Song of Solomon, and you read the dream of a man who hated his life with 1,000 women and dreamed of doing it God's way. But he couldn't go back and do that. I think there's several lessons we can learn from Ruth. One is that Ruth and Boaz both always looked to help somebody else. When Naomi was going home, alone, bitter, hurting, lost her husband, lost her sons, lost her faith, she was dying inside. And she told the girls, go on back to your parents. I don't have any use for you. I don't want you around me. I'm bitter. And Ruth was able to look over that. Ruth was able to get past that. And put her arm around her and said, entreat me not to see you. For whether thou goest, I will go. Whether thou lodgest, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God is my God. And God does ever so much more to me if I am not buried beside you. Others, Lord, yes, others. Let this my song be, that I will live my life for others, that I might live it for thee. Some of you are old enough to remember that old Tennessee Ernie Ford song out of the 50s. Yeah. Others. Both Ruth and Boaz lived their life to help other people, to be good to people. We live in a society that has become me first. It's all about me. I'm worried about me. I want my way. I want my diverse. I want what I want. I want it now. Be good to me. Do what I want. The church has become affected with a me disease. It's all about me. Ruth and Boaz can teach us. Go all the way. Help other people. Don't worry about getting paid for it. Learn how to live a life for others, that you might be living for God. I told Della a long time ago the secret of joy, and she quotes me constantly. She loves that.
I love that word joy.
When you put Jesus first, others second, and yourself last, you'll find joy. And this is what this church needs. Every problem I come to, every place that Satan attacks us, is because I'm worried about me. I want my way. I want to do what I want to do. I want the kids to respond to me. I want my parents to do what I want to do. I want my way. It's time, if we're going to learn something from Ruth and Boaz at all, that we learn to be concerned about others and do for others and wear yourself out helping others. Lord, let this my model be. Others, yes, others. Let it be. Not only that, they were not lazy. Both of them were extremely energetic, ambitious. Laziness is dying on the installment plan. I have never gotten over this idea, I got to sleep to noon to get rested up. More people die in bed than anywhere else, so you better get out of bed early. Yeah. The whole idea, I got to have a day off to sleep to make up. The only way you can really be healthy is set one time and getting up every morning, and 7 days a week you get up at that time. Yeah. That's the most healthy way to live. Yeah. And you don't like me. No, Herb, shut up now. Quit preaching. You want to preach about the meddling. But we are a lazy group of people. If I'm not going to get paid for it, I'm not going to do it. If I don't have some glory and get honor from it, I'm not going to do it. It's time. We decided I'm going to be like Rebecca. You remember the old boy was praying, God, I don't know how I'm going to do this. The boss wants to bring the wife home for his son, 40 years old, and wallflower. I can't go get his own girlfriend. I got to go get a girlfriend for him. I don't know. What if I bring the wrong one, God? And he's praying, Lord, let the woman I asked for a drink not only give me a drink, but water my cabin. Out comes this beautiful chick. Anybody in the neighborhood looked at her. Now, guys, you know we look at girls. If you're not dead, you look, okay? Yeah. Women just live with it, okay? Yeah, you live with it, okay? And what you say, guys, is, God, I want to compliment you on how well you put her together. You start praising God, and you won't lust after her, okay? But he looked at it and saw this girl coming down. She was an Alma. That word is used 6 times in the Old Testament. It means a virgin. You didn't have many virgins in the Old Testament, kind of like now. Alma is used 6 times. And it's always defined. She was a virgin, she was an Alma, for she'd never known a man. And in Isaiah 7:14, and the virgin, an Alma, shall conceive and bear a child, and shall call his name Emmanuel, meaning God with us. Mary and Jesus. She comes out, and the guy said, would you give me a drink of your water? Now, the well's down there. She's got about a 2-liter jug she's carrying water in. You all seen the pictures. I mean, we have these these holy drawings we have about what went on, like a photograph. She'd get the well. Hey, would you give me a drink out of your glass? Well, I'd be glad to, sir. Now, he's come across some dry country. So he takes a big drink. And I said, would you water my camels? Now, ladies, you don't know nothing about watering a camel, okay? He had 10 of them. Plus he's men. Now, camels can drink. They're famous for storing up water for a week at a time. Now, I love water, but I can't store for a week at a time, I'll guarantee you. And she would go in that well, back and forth, 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 bringing the water up. And Gehazi just said, she's pretty, she's an Alma, and she's industrious, she'll do. The trouble today, we think the most energy some of us are doing is turning on the television to watch a soap opera as the worm turns and General Hospital. It's time to understand that husband and wife share the work. It's not a one-way street. And guys, if you're a better cook than she is, tell her to get out of the way and do the job. And if she's a better cook than you are, yeah, and by the way, guys, if she can keep books better than you, don't be hogging the checkbook. Let her handle it. Understand something. This is how marriage works. What you do best is what you do, and you can both respect each other for it. There's no man-woman jobs. Any one of my kids have been hard to starve out. Everyone had to learn to cook. And the girls had to learn to change tires and change oil before they got their driver's license. Yeah, they did. They had to change tires in the car, and they had to change oil down on the car before I let them go take their driver's license test. And when Lori learned to drive defensive driving, at midnight, I took a strip. Now, she's had to fight guerrillas. She's had to drive through guerrilla roadblocks. Now, but I had a strip out between Vidor and Orangefield where I had walked all the trash out of the ditch for 100 yards. And I had her in 2-cylinder cars, 4-cylinder cars, 6-cylinder cars, and 12-cylinder cars, automatics and standards, learning to drive. And we come down that road at 5 miles an hour. I said, take it in the ditch. Take it in the ditch. She take it in the ditch. At 5 miles an hour, come out the other side. Well, you comfortable doing that? No, let's do it again. 5 miles an hour, into the ditch. Come out the other side. You comfortable? You a little better. Do it one more time, 5 miles an hour. In the ditch. Are you comfortable? Yeah. Okay, now 10 miles an hour. In the ditch now. Comfortable? No. Do it again, 10 miles an hour. 20 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour. Until she could come in that ditch and out without ever touching a brake, without ever moving the steering wheel. And that's how she was trained to go through guerrilla roadblocks and have the car shot at and other things. Understand something. We live in a hard world. It's not about getting by. It's about knowing how to have life and live it. Quit living it with automatic transmissions. Learn how to drive. Learn how to do jobs. Learn how to cook. Learn how to go in the desert and live. Because my friends, one of these days you're going to have to. One of these days you're going to live by your brains. What you know. And on beyond that, Ruth and Boaz, they just worked hard at helping other people, working together, and doing things God's way. I don't care how old you get, how many initials are after your name on your letterhead, on your doorplace, on your business card. I don't care how many years of college you have. There's one thing that you can't beat, and that's learning to do things God's way. I've had a lot of criticism the last few weeks. People I love dearly criticizing me extensively over how I'm doing things. And I keep telling them, I said, you know, the nicest thing about me messing up, God keeps making it okay and making success out of it. Because it's God's way. And if there's one thing you need to learn, it's how to go to the Bible and figure out how to do things God's way. Because if you're not doing it God's way, you cannot win. If you're on the wrong road, it don't matter how fast you drive, you're not going to get there to where you want to get. And if you're not doing it God's way, it's not going to work. You may get by for a day or two. But Ruth and Boaz won because they did it God's way. Amen. This is probably